We've got the 9:04 a.m.
Yeah, Ryan, well, hey, Indigo, Park Minor, Clear Green, or Steve Florida, City of Franklin, or Fair Brand, Hamilton County. Active feelings, have a big one. Very watching if he's not.
Todd Wilson, City of Indianapolis.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna turn the volume down 1 second.
Jim Kaufman, City of Beech Grove.
Sean Northup, MPO.
Kristen Sanchez, MPO.
Jennifer Cole, MPO.
Anna Grumley, MPO.
Good. First item of business is the minutes from January 23rd, 2026. Everybody had a chance to read those additions or corrections?
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And can't be opposed.
Unopposed. And we just don't care. Sorry.
All right, financial report, Tristan.
Okay. I lost my browser. All 2026 MPO local match dues have been received. They were due in order for policy voting to move forward. We are still waiting from NDOT to receive notification on the remaining 25% of our federal exchange funds for 2026. I'm hopeful that that will come through in the next 30 days. But I've gotten no word from NDOT and can't get a response right now on that. We did receive reimbursement for our first submittal for Q4 for the Safe Streets for All grant. So that is well underway. And then Ready continues to close out. We have about 6 months left. So we're nearing the finish line. So any questions on me? Oh, I guess the biggest thing is we'll be submitting our audit AFR today. I'm sure all your clerks are as well. So this is a happy day for me. And then we'll move forward. We've received no notification from Crow or the SBOA on who we'll be working with this year, but I'm sure that information will be forthcoming in the next month or two. So.
And we are getting, I would say, a few questions on IMPO as everybody's getting ready to submit. They're a little confused because federal exchange has the word federal in it. And so they assume it's federal funds and needs a CFR number. So we field a few of those calls from various jurisdictions since everybody can. So.
What percent of local membership dues have we received?
We've received all except for one jurisdiction.
Okay.
They are not required to submit. They're kind of an optional. But I did follow up with them the other day just to make sure that the invoice was received, and I think it has been now, so that should be coming.
More than 99.9.
Yeah.
Okay.
Move Wallach.
Second.
Second.
Second Barnett. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Financial contracts, Anna.
We have 4 contracts before you. 2 of them are pushing for a contract. Funds, so over the summer we have called for play project. And that is the Speedway 16 project and the Hamilton County 146 and River Road project. We'll start with Speedway. 16th Street is we committed $100,000 and the local match on that's from 5. And that is really looking, I think, to make that for the and then I'd like to go down to 146 and River Road. They're looking at studying intersection there. We know that is an not to exceed 150,000, though the IMPO's match is going to stay at the 94,720. Hamilton County will pick up all the remaining local match on that. They are still in negotiation on that project, but we do anticipate getting a final number, and that is a not to exceed number for us. Other projects is Taylor Seifer Williams, TSW, as they're commonly known. He was selected through an RFP process to update our active transportation plan. This is kind of multitude of funding sources. We do get 100% of what we call complete streets funding through INDOT. So we are going to use all of our 100% money on that. So that's 95,192. And then we're gonna split the remaining money, 80% planning dollars, 20% match. And the last one is Sean's project, Statera. So we've partnered, this will be our third time partnering with MyBoard to do a housing preference survey. And so we are contributing 54,000, or total cost is 54,000. We're contributing 19,500, and then MyBoard is picking up 34,500 of that project. We do that project once every 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. It's the fourth time we've done it. It's a long running survey. Keep a lot of the questions the same. Why do you live where you live? What choices do you face? What things do you prioritize? We only pick up 25% of that contract. The National Association of Realtors picks up half of it, and my board picks up the other quarter. So a really good deal. We love partnering with those guys. It's been the same vendor 3 of the 4 times. And it'll be in the field in March.
So the idea is to get that out ahead of primaries, just because the vendor is caught up with a lot of political polling later as we approach primaries. So, any questions on any 4 of those contracts?
Is that the past year's data that you've got on that, is that available on the website or something?
I don't know if it's available on the website. We can make it available.
Yeah,
We have.
yeah, I would appreciate seeing that.
Yeah.
Do you see the data change from year to year? I mean, if you ask the same, kind of the same questions, does it change from area to area?
It has changed a little bit over time. Yeah, within margins though, like we're still seeing people prioritizing neighborhood. We're still seeing, schools and safety are the top 2 considerations and things that, folks have going on. So yeah, things like during COVID, like presence of a home office was a big deal in a backyard. Those things became a big deal. And then we'll see if they fall off after COVID or if they've stuck around. They didn't register before COVID. Those were not things that were even a big consideration.
Yes, I don't know.
Sidewalks and places to walk to are still the big underserved.
Yeah, I don't know where your question stems from, but we also do have the housing study that we did. That's a year or 2 old, looking at different aspects, but also includes the corporate investment. And kind of where corporate investors are investing and overlaying some of that data with code enforcement and some other things. So there is that housing study as a resource as well.
And we can get that online as well.
That one is for sure is online. I think with the MyBoard study, since it's about 5 years old and we're about to restart it, was taken offline. So, but we can get it to you.
I just love data, so there's nothing really behind it.
I'll send you the
And
cross.
the trend, right, what's the trend? Is there a change happening?
Yeah, and we're doing a joint event with my board in August. And it'll report on the trend of our 4 surveys. But yeah, I can send you the crosstabs from the previous 3 for our 3 years.
Yeah. If there isn't any other commentary, I would make a motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And Sean, you're up. Who's strategic plan?
Well, joined here, let's see if I can figure out how to do this without an echo.
Motion carries.
All right.
Man, I'm taking my time.
Jen or Rich, can you say something really quickly?
Hi, everyone. Good morning. How are you? Can you hear us?
Yes, that works out great.
Okay.
Plan. So we found dates for our Atlanta trip. They're in June, 8th, 9th, 10th, something like that. We are really pleased with the level of participation. So thank you all for bearing with us through surveys and everything like that. that was not easy to kind of find those dates and land on that, but we finally got there, and I think we're gonna put together a really nice trip. The ARC is a really interesting place to go. That's a regional entity that's been very plugged in at both the state and local level. And they've been kind of a trusted regional partner. And a lot of things have been hung on the ARC as they've continued to kind of evolve. Now that's a region that has seen really rapid growth and has put a lot on their MPO. They function very, very well at the data level, safety planning, land use planning. They do a lot of water planning. It's a major issue in Atlanta. It's a very high point. The reason it's there is it's a railroad crossroad. There's not any hydrologic reason that they are where they are. And so it's a fascinating place. A lot of cooperation, a lot of things that I think we can learn from. They do their jobs very, very well. We learned a lot from them in 2017. I think we're eager to learn from. It's a different management team down there. We, in the past couple of months, Rich and Jen have been leading the process of one-on-one interviews, and we wanted to report back the things that we were hearing from you all and partners and board members, some of the themes that have kind of come across. So I'll hand that over to Rich and Jen.
Hey, Sean,
what
are the dates again?
Jen, help me out on the specific dates.
June 10th to 12th.
I said those wrong.
Will they send out invites?
Yes. Yep.
And on this conversation, after we talk about this, I do have some questions about stipend and the easiest way for us to like reimburse you. So, yeah, that's the questions now.
Sean and team, are we sharing slides or are you guys sharing our slides? 'Cause if we are, I need access.
You go ahead and share, but let me, yeah, it's this.
Okay, I think that works. Let's see. Okay, you should, whoa, what am I seeing? Hold on 1 second. Do you see the slides or do you see my whole screen? I'm trying to figure out what you're seeing.
Yeah, great.
I see half of your screen.
Yeah, that's weird. That's a new one. Take two. Probably grabbed the wrong window. Good to see some familiar faces. What I see the owls zooming around, so good to see a few of you, and nice to meet the others. Obviously, I'm just excellent on tech, as you can see. What the heck?
We didn't hire you for your tech skills, right?
Yeah.
You want me to try, Rich?
Yeah, I don't know why I'm on this small screen. It's not. Yeah, there's only one option. Yeah, you want to try
Good
it?
access from Sean.
So why did I figure out that, as I mentioned, we did a survey of tech and policy of all memberships, an email survey. We also did a separate email survey for exec because we thought those questions were slightly different. And then following up with that, there was face-to-face interviews. I think everyone tried to get at least 30 minutes to ask questions about the MPO, relationships and kind of just general overall thoughts. And I think they are here to share all of the themes on that.
Yeah. Thanks, Jen, and thanks, Sean. Okay, I think we got the slides working now. Yeah, so here's what we're going to talk about today. I think we wanted to just kind of go through this at a good pace and then open it up for dialogue with y'all. So yeah, we'll talk about the process, where we are, and then just some of the next steps. Next. Yeah, so as we had proposed and laid out in our plan, really the first area here was establishing the organization in regional context, which we've kind of been undertaking. We've been reviewing the other plans, any of the internal stuff, lots of dialogue with the team. We did this strength, opportunities, aspirations, and results session to really understand thinking about the future. Done a good amount of work on the engagement stakeholders. It's, ongoing, sort of filling in the gaps there. And then, we're starting some sessions with staff to talk about some of the areas that have been daylighted that we'll share with you today. And that'll, move us into creating those strategic recommendations of what's next for the organization. yeah, and then you so the final part of moving to action, the implementation work, which the team did an exceptional job of implementing last time we were worked with you all, and so we're excited to kind of get to that phase. Next. Yeah, so we're trying to make sure we're, to the point that Anna mentioned, making sure that we're getting feedback from a variety of resources. So you see here some of the head count and sort of number of respondents we're having. Ultimately what we try to do is those different intersections between staff and you all in the executive committee and the policy and tech committee and yeah, all that is just really try to triangulate sort of where folks' heads are in terms of what's working, what's not, what's missing, and both as an organization, but also in the region at large to see what is the role of the MPO, what are they playing today? What could they be playing in the future? And as part of that also, you see here in the bottom one, also looking at peer benchmarking. So not just ARC, but we've looked across, kind of scanned for promising practices throughout MPO organizations to understand sort of, yeah, where's the state of the art of MPOs and some of the work that they're doing, either because they've been called upon by their community or just areas that align with their core mission of transportation. And so, we're also bringing that into the mix as we have this discussion. Next. Yeah, so I think we've kind of summarized, boiled down, especially the survey and the discussions into what we've seen as 5 themes emerge. So you see here, sort of listed, and I'll go into these a bit. But yeah, I mean, so I think the attributes in terms of the technical credibility, certainly seen as a transparent, and trusted entity. I think the longevity and the steadiness of the organization compared to a lot of the other organizations that, even we worked with you all in 2017, 2018. There's been a lot of change in leadership. And so that, I think that people that, that trust that's there and that longevity is something that's important. And similar, the convening power as a result of that, just the ability to sort of bring folks together in a, transparent way across the region. And similar to last time, I think there are ongoing growing expectations. We know, there's obviously work being done with the RDA around, what is some future visioning of what happens in the region. And so there are some areas that, for discussion that we want to have with y'all. And part of that also is the role ambiguity. I think because of the, things have evolved over the last few years and trying to understand sort of what lanes or what roles do folks play within the community, both, transportation, I think is settled, but other things like water and housing and land use and things like that are sort of on the table. Next. Yeah, so we just, really looked at some of those strengths that I mentioned, kind of just going down one level in terms of some of the both, kind of direct quotes that we saw and things. I think, I won't read all these. I think this idea of like the glue of the region, I think we've heard that a lot through folks, that idea of being able to convene folks. I think being fair and sort of the decision-making process, or the fair and transparent funder, I think that's held up over the years. And it's hard, trying to avoid favoritism is not easy. And so I think but folks feel that the NPO does a really good job of that. Yeah, the data and technical expertise, I think just a go-to resource in the region, in terms of like what's happening and really sort of being that steady hand to guide, sort of, bring education and facts to the table. It's something that the strong role that the organization's playing. And doing unbiased research. So a lot of folks ask for, input and advice. And so that's an opportunity that is continued for the organization. Next. And then the how the organization's operating. I don't know if well-oiled machine. I forget how you guys like that quote, but yeah, I think folks to see it, the operationally, there's not a lot of drama in what you do. So I think that's something that's been good to see. Strong team, leadership, staff, and expertise. Overall, I think, people really note a positive relationship with the MPO. And also the fresh, open to new ideas, which I think, sometimes you don't see that, especially in this climate that we are in. I think, a lot of folks, you guys, the MPO is open to conversations with folks. So I think that's something that stands out. Next. Folks seem to be satisfied. There was no negative, so everybody was either very satisfied or somewhat, or one person was neutral. But I think overall, I mean, that's a good sign. I think again, it lends to the credibility of the organization. And some of the things that stood out to us when we looked at what the regional planners were saying, I think the trailer-oriented development study was something that was really well received, as well as the Vision 02 or things that people really highlighted as really impactful for the work that the planners have been doing. This housing study, I think there's we felt like the staff felt like there could be more impact with the housing study, but we heard from the planners that it was really well received, as well as the regional activity centers. And just also supporting this collaboration across jurisdictions is something that they've enjoyed, and you'll see later. I mean, they're asking for more of that, more convening and more cross-jurisdictional learning. Next, is this? I'm looking at Sean and Anna. I can see you guys pace okay. I talk too fast sometimes in the morning after coffee.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, yeah, organizational challenges, some things to, again, as we think about this is a strategic plan, so we should be open about, what are the things that we can, think about and do better in some cases. So one is just thinking about opportunity for leadership resilience, succession planning. I think, the team I'm looking at with Anna and Sean, I guess again, longevity has been there. And I think, but people say, at some point is that, may not be the case. And so I think making sure that there is sort of a plan for organizational resilience, because we have seen the transfer of leaders in a number of organizations in the region. And, some have gone well, some not so well. And so I think people are mindful that we should be planning for that, at some point in time to have, succession planning happening. And then, yeah, the ambiguity, I think because of roles have changed, boards have changed, lots changed. I think, there's some confusion as we interview broader stakeholders about who is doing right now. And I know the catalyzed plan from CERTA is meant to do, especially on economic development, it's supposed to kind of align some of that. So I think we're obviously, as that's moving forward, we're very interested in having those discussions relative to this planning process in the next few months. And then, yeah, I think the idea of like, we asked folks about like, is there something else? Are there issues that no one's touching or, could be done better if the MPO or some organization kind of brought together conversation? And I think we've definitely heard the way that we're using land and how growth has been happening. And then housing, just the pressures of, what else in terms of housing and resources and education and data, all that stuff is like something that even from the housing team that I think Sean mentioned earlier, that you guys collaborate with. I mean, I think they're sensing that something more could happen there relative to convening and being a kind of backbone of housing information in the community. Um, yeah, so what does that mean? We're calling these strategic considerations. So this is where at this stage in the process, we like to kind of summarize to say, like, as we're thinking about next steps, what should we be considering, right? So what's the dialogue that we hope to have with you and probably others in the community as we move forward? So yeah, I mean, obviously organizational resilience, we want to make sure it continues to be a strong organization. So at some point we want to map what does succession planning look like, what time frame in the next planning, as we're implementation stage, what does that look like? At some point, I think having a MOU with CERTA to really define lanes because of just the interrelationship between a lot of the membership in the MPO and membership in CERTA and just being clear with the community. Like, so we think an MOU of like what roles each should play and collaboration there should be struck. Yeah, and I think there's been some questions around financial stability just because of, I mean, so much is because of the federal funds. I think there's a lot of assumptions being made that things are difficult or lots of, critique that we heard. I think just communicating where the organization is to dispel any thoughts that or rumors or whatever that people have, not that directly about the MPO, but just in general, I think just because the federal landscape is so confusing to a lot of folks. Yeah, I think the transportation focus, I mean, obviously, I think you do this, but I think, a sense of um, anything that we're talking about, make sure that the connection to transportation remains clear. So that even when we think about, housing or other land use, like, the core is transportation. And then, obviously the where people work and live and, all of that needs to be part of it, but transportation is still the core. Um, and I think the overall like transportation relative to health, quality of life, and safety because it's core tenants. Um, Especially, I think, we've heard from some folks, and we're seeing from also from peers, really thinking about innovation. So like, air taxis, for instance, or autonomous vehicles, right? Like they all have implications, like in some places are ahead of even Indianapolis, especially like unmanned vehicles. And that's and create new risks, new challenges, new regulations, new lots of things. And so like yeah, there's a question of like what's the role of the MPO versus others there, but also at the core of ensuring that quality of life aspect remains strong. Yep, some more. I think expanding data offerings, both as a tool for the planners, but also as potentially a product. So one thing, I think we've heard about, especially localized, figuring out ways to create localized data. Some of that could be through, various subscription-based data providers that the MPO can play a role in aggregating. Others may be data that is created locally and creating a data, capture and framework for things that are beyond or don't fit with a census tract or other way that data is currently organized. Other thing is, publishing like a series, like a dashboard of indicators, transportation obviously core, but what else, related to that use the data that is in-house that kind of guide planners and others in the community, like, having a dashboard, which also kind of reinforces sort of the brand and the role of the MPO in the region, if that's something that happens. Um, yeah, and then convenings. I mean, we've heard a lot. I mean, we're seeing this a lot in our work around the country is like people are recognizing that the systems for how we would meet and have ideas struck because we're in person uh, don't exist as much. And so like, I think we're hearing a lot about like trying to bring together people around topical areas of, either learning or things that people want to sort of, talk about and almost create like an editorial counter of like what are those things that we're hearing from planners and other partners that could be topics that are timely that people really want to hear about and discuss as across jurisdictions. Um, yeah, and then I think being intentional about where is the MPO sort of leading certain areas of trying to as the team is seeing things of need, but also then supporting too, like again, hearing from folks like what kind of things that they want to have as part of that educational platform. Um, yeah, and then like one thought that has become up that is interesting to us is like considering some kind of state of the region. And again, this could be something that's done with partners, but like, yeah, when you think about, both the transportation, the economy, health, demographics, all that, like almost like is there using that data apparatus to really create sort of a report that is the state of the region through all those lenses combined. We see some of that in different areas, but there's nothing that thinks holistically about sort of where are we as a region. Next. Yeah, and then adjacent programmatic areas. In some of these, we talked a little bit, I think, last strategic planning process, but like I think one is, definitely land use planning and modeling. I think as we think about the growth patterns that are happening, pursuing are there additional resources for, planners and elected leaders to think more about like what does strategic regional growth look like and how do we better manage that? I think housing resource development, understanding, obviously the action happens in the communities, but also are there resources that can be developed at the regional level? And we'll definitely see a lot of that with the Appalachian, or I'm absolutely sorry, Atlanta Regional Commission. Those acronyms always get me. Yeah, the Atlanta Regional Commission definitely has a role that they are playing in their community along those lines. And then future mobility, I think thinking about really the future of transportation tech. I think there are impacts, and in this conversation, we know that there's a committee that's been formed at the state level. I think they're looking for partnership around the policy regulatory. So it's one thing to think about air taxis or on autonomous vehicles, but how do we make sure that our communities have the right infrastructure in place to support that and manage that going forward. Okay, so that's my fast coffee infused presentation. So yeah, I think we really wanted to kind of just share that with you to show where we are in the process, obviously, and sort of what's on our minds, and our being like our team and Anna, Sean, and Steve largely. We're going to start engaging staff to hear their thoughts again. I mean, we have already, obviously, but now that we're sort of identifying some focus areas, so we thought that now is a really good moment in time to really hear your reflections on what I just rambled on about. And what questions do you have? Anything that, yeah, definitely things that you feel strongly we should continue to pursue. Any aha moments of like, man, we totally missed the ball on something. Um, yeah, and then just we always ask at these intervals, like when you think about the next decade, what's success look like? We'll see if we can get to that one. But yeah, I think I'll pause and just open it up for any of your reflections on what I just said.
Could have brought more coffee.
Yeah.
So for the MPO group, is Atlanta who you all consider is who we want to try to go figure out how can we do some of the stuff that they do?
Some of the stuff.
Yeah.
You will learn Atlanta is significantly larger, obviously,
Right.
not even a peer city. But I like their organization. We looked at a lot of organizations and we're trying to figure out like where, like, rate their MPOs all around the country. It's a good example because they have a solid core, what I'm gonna call MPO core function, but they have other areas. Andy Cook, Mayor Myers were on the last trip. When I asked Andy Cook what his thought, he was, because if you're an Indiana person, all you know is the Indian PO. So he thought it was very eye-opening to see the breadth of things a regional organization could do. And there are pieces and parts of things that they are doing that I think we should look at moving forward with or implementing, maybe on a smaller scale. Some of the regional center work, I think is definitely on the agenda to highlight. What else are we looking to highlight?
Yeah, some of the rural housing work that they've done, sort of helping to support with education materials. Yeah. And then we're also going to tour some communities to also talk to the communities directly in terms of how their relationship and how they're benefiting and understanding as they're growing, sort of what's that dynamic look like. So we'll also have those opportunities.
And there's always, right, suburban, core city, push pull. Last time we took 2 trips, we did Denver and we did Atlanta. Denver's methodology for transportation funding is something I don't think we should, look at or model after. Denver, was interesting too. Now probably more to play, like water's a big deal in Denver. Water's becoming a bigger deal in Indianapolis, something that we are at the crux of, but it is a regional issue that their council.
The last time we were in Atlanta, they had a pretty sophisticated survey and feedback process. They did a state of the region that had a few months lead up to it. That was a really cool process. We'll be interested to see what they've done with that over time. It was pretty mature when we were there the last time, so that will be interesting. I think as far as like attainable, given our staff size, given our budget, things like that, Columbus, Milwaukee, Nashville, they all incorporate, really broad work areas. They all do a lot more in land use and housing, connected to transportation. I think that's the one thing that we really need to kind of focus on is the nexus of the two, how the two things are interrelated and how they can support each other. We heard loud and clear in the surveys, transportation is the core of what we do. Do not lose the fair and transparent funding process. We're working very hard on that right now through the TIP scoring update. So that came through loud and clear. That will never change or go away. That'll continue to be the focus of what we do. But we have heard consistently for a very long time that there's an appetite to do more. Obviously, what's changed since the last strategic plan is the RDA. And so that took a bite out of economic development for sure. The things that we thought we were going to be doing in economic development. We did the SEDS last time. We may be doing the SEDS again. We've been in a conversation with both EDA and the RDA to figure out what our lane is. Swim lanes is the concept that came out of this. What's our swim lane? In that it seems like producing the SEDS and then handing that off. Maybe where we go, it's due for renewal this year or next. So we're having that conversation, but everything else in economic development, pursuing economic development grants has certainly been the purview of the RDA. That's been very clear. Business expansion and retention has been all your LEDOs and the Indy Alliance and Indy Chamber. And so we stay out of that lane and support them with data as much as we can. But we're starting to get some more clarity within economic development where we're going. By comparison, land use and housing in the Wild West, right? So there's a lot more work about, and I would add water resource planning, resiliency as well. So we're trying to get our arms around what other regions are doing to address those areas because there does seem to be an appetite for it.
And then
Can we open up what the MOU with the CERTA means? I saw that on the slide.
it's conceptual right now. It's really just trying to understand what the RDA, their role and what our role is. A good example of this, and I don't know how many people know this, so under the Biden administration, there was $1 million EPA grant that was being given out to regions our size. It was 100% federal funding for carbon was it carbon reduction?
Yep.
Yeah, and it was for regional organizations. We had it on this agenda to talk about it and get approval to go after the funding. Jason Taylor from Fisher said, time out, I think the RDA is going after that, I think. And so the RDA did go after that funding and got it to go, like, it ran the process, and we supported that. We were the outreach component of it, but it was like, had no idea it was on the RDA's radar to go after the funding. Happy to support it. But yeah, like what should the IMPO be leading and doing, and where's the RDA fit into that? How can we help support the RDA and their initiatives as well?
Does Atlanta have a soda group to kind of like what Indy has?
They have an economic development district and they have a council of mayors. So more like, what was the old group that you guys had? Or
CEO.
CIC. Yeah, Rich, was there something else? Did they have another economic development organization?
They do under the chamber, yeah.
And then it is the idea too, that I feel like next month, I think we're trying to make progress to bring in a virtual MPO, so like a Morpsey, Ohio, like, right, we realize we can't take you everywhere. That maybe we highlight and have them talk about what they're doing, so introduce you guys to a couple of other MPOs. And some of the things they're tackling on a regional level without actually traveling there. So that is in the cards, a couple of virtual visits, if you will, or exchange, and then the Atlanta trip specifically.
Well, I see CERTA and the MPO as a team, quite honestly. I mean, I think you guys do a good job about trying to work together and making things happen. And I think that's where we're going here, is find out who's responsible for what, so we're not doing stuff. But I think it is great we work together with the MPO and CERTA.
I mean, right, you guys are all the same.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was gonna say, that's right, because not everybody sitting at this table is part of that, but half of the people sitting at this table are parts of that, right? I mean, the overlap between your policy committee and CERTA is significant, right?
For sure.
So, yeah, I think those of us who are in both definitely see that's a natural partnership for the CERTA and the MPO to work together. And I think it's a good idea to have a written MOU that defines who's doing what, right? And I think that EPA thing is a good example of where CERTA might lead an effort, but when it comes to needing staff support, right, CERTA doesn't have the staff to do it. That's slowly building, but we don't, there just isn't the staff to do everything we're trying to do, and that's where I think MPO definitely, you have the capabilities to come alongside CERTA and be able to make the whole region more effective, essentially. So.
And I think the RDA's evolved, because I think a couple of years ago, right, when I sat down with Badness, he's like, we're at the State House, if you need, like, if there's stuff going on in transportation, let us know about it. Like, we're testifying, and it's evolved a little bit with Ready 2.0 and the EPA funds. And so, right, like, we have grown and evolved, and the RDA is gonna grow and evolve as well. And so it's just different today than it was a couple of years ago. I'm really being more that political arm.
Yeah, just on the economic development thing, you mentioned the SEDS, right, which under the statute, we're required to have a SEDS. However, I think most of the folks on the CERTA board don't necessarily see the SEDS as a very strategic document, which is why we are actually doing a different economic development strategy that is going to be much more focused on a few core strategies for the region. But I think the two can and will need to work together. We're still going to be required to update the SEDS on a regular basis, and if you ever talk to Scott Badness, he'll tell you that the SEDS is kind of a kitchen sink plan that throws everything, and it's that way intentionally. And unfortunately, I think when you do a kitchen sink plan, sometimes you're not being very strategic, which is why we're trying to do this other plan, and you know what Jason to it, I guess. So, but so even on that, right, I think there's a role both for CERTA and for the MPO to do different components of that to make sure we're both compliant, but also strategic. So,
yeah, for those who don't know, SEDS is a federally required EDA document. So there are certain components, which Andrew's, it's It's got a lot of things in it and not as strategic because, yeah, when the feds developed it.
Shifting gears a little bit, I guess, one of the interesting things I thought they said or talked about was like the advances in technology. Like, I was just at Phoenix and there's Waymos everywhere. Well, I don't think Central Indiana is doing anything like that, but is that like a regionally driven situation, or is that a company who has a market that actually works and they're choosing things? And is that legitimately like an area the MPO can lead, or how does that work? I guess I don't know anything about it other than just seeing it.
Good question.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, oh, sorry, is somebody else answering? Well,
You can answer.
yeah, I mean, my perspective, I mean, there is a committee, so Connexus is part of a committee that the state has formed. And so in early discussions with them, I think what they're seeing is this, there are some things that a state has to create in terms of a, regulatory and operational framework for those vendors to come in. And so they're in discussions about what does that look like. And again, it's a variety of technologies, autonomous, but also air taxis is a thing in other markets that's becoming a very active conversation in other technology. And then, so then the thought though is that like at the regional level is like, how do you then, as WAMO would want to operate in an area, there are going to be issues around like, again, regulations, like understanding sort of, different community perspectives on it and things like that. And so I think the thought is like there should be some regional entities then that are helping their communities figure out how to navigate that. Because I think what we've seen when man was going into certain areas, like it's been bad because like if they don't properly work with local jurisdictions, it just has not gone well. And residents, there's been issues, right? And then all of a sudden residents are up in arms and things just don't go poorly on both sides. So I think that so ideally, like what we want to have over the next, couple months is a discussion around like what is that best fit and role for each one of the state, a region to play. And everybody thinks Central Indiana would be the first place that a WIMO or others would want to come to. So.
Yeah, we had a partnership, I mean, kind of long running and ongoing with Tassie and IU Indy. I think a partnership like that can attract companies that do that kind of thing. It's just a matter of how much we do with them and how much we want to actually pursue something like that, but.
So Tessie has a new executive director that I, need to connect with or have reached out to for trying to get that scheduled, so.
Yeah, even things like drone delivery is one of the other technology areas. It's some communities have been overwhelmed by all of a sudden a drone operator, like somebody approves it at the local jurisdiction level. And then, yeah, there's been, pretty strong backlash. And so I think just having a resource that's trying to keep on top of that stuff as those things are happening in the markets.
Allstate has drone delivery. It's pretty fun watching those little mouse things with all the students.
Delivering food and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
delivering food.
Anything we're missing?
Questions just in 10 years. In 10 years, right? Was that one of them?
Yeah.
Any other thoughts?
When you talk about Waymo. So to me, the real thing is microtransit, right? Waymo's a company that can deliver microtransit, but I guess that's one question I have as we look forward to the future. How does a concept like microtransit fit into that going forward? We don't have to have that conversation today, just.
Yeah.
But I think that's something that should be on the MPO's radar.
That should be on the radar.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're more than happy to provide our experience that we had with microtransit. So if people didn't know that we did a pilot about 3 or 4 years ago on the southeast side of Indianapolis called Indigo Connect. And we ran that for I think about 6 months, maybe a little bit longer. So we can provide that to the MPO and as well, so that they're aware of it.
I'll just say this, I mean. I'm gonna consider it, right, regardless of what we do regionally,
Yeah.
I'm looking at it.
Yeah,
And we ought to talk, right?
Well, I'm saying, that's what, yeah, we're more than happy to provide our feedback on it, how it went as well. We did not continue it. I think I would just suggest that whatever community is considering it, just consider what your goals are for it. microtransit has had varying success in different community sizes, and where they plan the zone and how it's deployed. And it can be too successful. It can be not successful enough, and it can also depend on who's looking at what metric. So I think it has a role. Transit agencies have deployed them, communities without transit agencies, communities who convert entire transit agencies to microtransit has a role, but just like anything else, you've got to define what success is for your community and how much you're willing to put into that program.
Does it make sense to have you guys come present at the June joint meeting with tech and policy?
I need to talk to Brooke about it. It's been a minute. Brooke was the one who was doing that program. And maybe it'd be better somewhere down the road, considering what we've got going on internally right now, so.
Okay.
Right, how can it be too successful?
Yeah, certainly. So, I mean, it's a system of drop off pickup. People want that to happen within a certain amount of time. If you have too many demands on a limited number of vans, then the wait time can blow up, and so then people become unsatisfied with the service. So the response is to either throw more vans at it. With the vans are equipped with operators, which then makes the service, potentially more expensive. So that's how other areas have seen it to be too successful. We actually strategically chose an area where the transit demand wasn't going to be too significant to try and make sure that we weren't going to have those types of service challenges with it. All right, our fixed route buses, right? I mean, they just run. And we design it in areas where there's lots of people and connect them to lots of places. But if you got this zone and all of a sudden it blows up, especially with pricing, right? We priced our trip as the same as our fixed route. So that's a pretty heavily subsidized door-to-door trip for people that can really blow up on you.
Doesn't scale.
It struggles to scale, yeah, for the most part. It really struggles to scale if it becomes very, very popular. So it's just better to know that up front than to get hit with it down the road. So
That's why you have Uber surcharges.
yeah, right.
Eventually, the optimal solution is people go to the bus. And we end up back at fixed route.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you guys know, we've had a long history with transit and being blocked by the legislature, so I'm trying to find creative ways, to get people where they need to go.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we have 4 counties that have public transit systems, and I know they're pretty good at serving the community they serve, but expanding that is its own challenge. But more than happy to share. None of that is stuff that we're trying to hold back. It's just there's a lot of stuff that we did in that short time period.
I would love to see that.
Okay.
I'm gonna say, I do have a question, and I kind of need to connect with most of you anyway on the stipend reimbursement for those that are traveling. I have questions there, and I know each of your jurisdictions are slightly different, so I'm probably just gonna follow up with you guys in the next week or so and ask some questions on that question, because I know we are trying to figure that out on our end. Any other questions on, so we're doing hotel blocks. I imagine, I hope to have an email out at least next week with some general, I will get calendar holds out today for all of you that have acknowledged yes. I did extend invitations to this group. We had a couple of people that couldn't travel this group, right? Summertime kids, family, all of the things. I get it. I did invite a couple of other members that aren't part of the executive committee, just making sure we had a core group that, traveling. So Scott Willis from Hamilton County Westfield said yes. And from the city of Indianapolis, because we are looking at some housing and land use things, DMD Logan Lane, who I don't know very well, but has agreed to travel with us for those as well. Any other questions right now about the strategic plan? Okay. If you're, okay, can I move on? Okay. Project recommendations. There are a few things I just want to highlight. We are putting the final touches on the list of staff recommendations. Projects are costing more money. there's less of a geographic distribution on the projects. You will see some very specific notes. We are making some LPAs, like hit some milestones tied with their project funding. There are notes that are worth. We are still working on, so like we are using old tip scoring on this. We are very actively working on having significant meetings and getting in the weeds on changing scoring. And we are actively working on that. The hope is to have that adopted by the August meeting, right?
Targeting June, I might slip to
Yeah, in my mind it already is August.
Yeah.
So we are targeting June. What we're trying to do is extrapolate past submittals and run it with the new scoring. Because sometimes you tweak one thing and it has an unintended consequence on project selection. So we like to take it and kind of just put old data in there and see how it would have changed an old previous year's call. And we're having trouble getting that data out of our IMPO and our active system. So we're in the process of doing that. Kristen, do you have any updates? No. Okay.
It's work coming, I'd say Monday, so.
You're putting on a date. I was gonna just leave it there.
I'm gonna say Monday.
I was just thinking, don't hold us to Monday. Okay. I was gonna leave it there.
Slipping. So
Yeah,
I'll give
yeah.
it a stick to it.
So I did also want to have the conversation, so our next call will be for fiscal year 2030. We don't have a federal exchange agreement for fiscal year 2030. I've been in conversations with the commissioner about creating a new agreement. We can no longer, the last agreement, this agreement will not be amended anymore, clause put to it. And so having conversations with Lindsay about executing a new agreement. We see, while we are only through 1.5 fiscal years, ton of benefits. We have great information from Indianapolis and a handful of other jurisdictions that have let projects already that show cost savings mostly, but projects have been able to go faster, which again results in cost savings. We have a handful of IMPO people that have kind of gone on record on saying like, yes, it's great not having your projects in our process. That means less projects to manage through lettings, other benefits of that nature. The commissioner seems amenable to doing a new agreement. However, there's this thing out there is the federal transportation bill expires in September and a new federal transportation bill, right, is in the process of being adopted, where there's the marker bill thrown out there. She's very nervous to commit her agency to federal commitments or to financial commitments, not knowing what her budget is. And so the timing's really bad to be negotiating or trying to enter into an agreement. So we're waiting. The marker bill is out there. It's a marker bill. It's gonna change a lot between now and then. I told her I'd follow up with her in about 30 days to see where she stood on it, but I need to know where we are, right? In order for us to hold the next call, we need to know if it's gonna be a state call, right? If we're gonna use federal funds or not, to be able to give direction for the call for the project. So unfortunately, the timing of the federal expiration of the transportation bill is not great for that conversation. So that's where we are. Kristen or Sean, do you guys have anything to add to that?
Do you have conversations with Jefferson Street, who's on the transportation committee at the federal level? Just curious.
Yeah, so I was out there in DC and I met with both Jefferson or Congressman Shreve and Megan, the head of his transportation policy. And I'm going out again in March, in the middle of March, with IMPO. We're doing Capitol Hill walks, and Jefferson is on our list, as in Carson, to talk about kind of the transportation bill and things we would like to see. So some of the things we're asking for is, right, like, let's eliminate all the federal competitive grants, or as many as we can, and just push that money down to us so we can distribute it. Indiana isn't very competitive, Central Indiana isn't very competitive on those national, like, that's a neutral, you don't even have to increase the transportation budget, and you could just push that money down. We would see an increase, and we'd be able to get more projects done. I also run the analysis both for Carson and Jefferson's office, that if we would have received 5% more funding, what projects would have been funded in his district, or 10%. So he has seen that analysis, and I've passed that along to Megan as well. He was, I would argue, looking for specific project commitments in his jurisdiction, and I told him that's not how we run. More money in the pot allows your communities the opportunity to go after the funding, and I can show you in past examples, some of your communities would have won projects. And I think I clearly communicated and tried to make sure those communities knew that that information was out there, that they didn't receive funding, but had we had more funding, they would have, and I'm trying to communicate that to the congressman's office. So, yes, is the answer to that, and trying to, like, as these things come up, also trying to be Megan's point of contact if she has questions, so. You are in his office, like his local office, are you having additional conversations, Ken Myers?
Yes, we have a phone conversation.
Okay,
We bundled with our city talk,
okay,
these areas that talking about it and trying to help us with more funding into central Indiana.
so.
So if you want to know it. Sure. I'll let you know when you get in, all I have to do is look outside.
So yeah, playing around on the national level, I honestly have not done this, in previous bill, or previous updates to the transportation bill, so this is actually very fun for me. To be able to go in, and then like the Michigan representative didn't show up, so I got to put on my old Michigan hat, like, talk about transportation, with some of their representatives as well that are on the team. So, very fun. There's a couple of things I did want to just update you guys on. We've crossed the significant finish line for the household travel survey. So if you remember, we canceled a lot of executive meetings last year just talking about this, because we spent most of our money on the household travel survey, because it was like $1.2 million to have a statistically sound survey on how people are traveling, their trips, their trip purpose. We completed the last survey. We have not received the data yet, but that is going to be used to help calibrate our model, which is kind of our traffic simulation of how traffic moves in the region. And as well, we'll get reports, and we will report out and share some of the nuggets of information we get on how people are traveling. So pretty excited about that. The other thing I will tell you is I executed a $20,000 contract. It's on my executive director under my threshold, to add a tolling component to our travel demand model. That will allow us to run some scenarios should tolling come into effect in Central Indiana. It will take us some time to obviously implement that, and set, right, the different, if tolling's $5, how much traffic is pushed to local roads and streets? If it's $1, what does that look like? And so we did not have that capability, and currently don't have that capability, but I hope to in about 3 to 6 months, on our travel demand model, just knowing some of the state legislation and things are, so. That certification is in April. Mayor Myers, just a heads up for you, you will receive an official letter, since you are our board chair, that certification is going to start when the feds send it. So just a heads up, you will receive an email that says the IMPO is going to be reviewed and certified by FHWA and FTA. That is part of the official kickoff process. Other than that, I don't think I have any updates. Any questions for me?
Yeah, so if we're gonna talk about tolling. Well, I'm already getting all these texts saying I already owe these tolls and.
Don't click on it. Don't click on it.
Just send them the money.
Yeah. Yes.
Give them your bank information.
Give my social security number.
Obviously.
No, oh no, okay, I think we need a motion and a second to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Hi.
Opposed and leave.
All right, good
Thank
seeing all
you.
y'all.
Have a great weekend.
You too.